All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for day 3 of URG's virtual training series. My name is Kristen Alexander, and we have Amanda Morrison on here as well. We are URG's member relations specialists, and we worked on getting this whole thing together with all of your presenters. So they've done a great job so far, and we know that they're going to continue to do a great job. So today, we have Chad Counts with Counts Business Consulting talking about the sales counters that pay for themselves. I'll give you a little background on Chad. He performs online weekly sales management and sales training, individual business consulting, owners groups meetings. He's currently CBC is emphasizing direct services to enhance recycler profitability, such as recruiting, hiring, sales management, organizational development, and training services. So recently, he launched a free weekly industrial podcast titled Let Me Talk to My Customer. The regular weekly podcast is sales-centric that will also have special episodes to highlight other points of interest within the industry. This podcast is available through most podcast services, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play, to name a few. So Chad, I'll kick it off here and let you take over.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kristen, again for putting this on. Amanda, Dawn. We really appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity and seeking to fill that void that so many of us are filling right now with not being able to be in person and be together, see everybody, discuss ideas. This is always a hallmark event, a keystone event for the industry that you guys put on. And in many ways, as true in most facets of life, the absence of something really highlights its importance. So thank you, everyone who's joining us today. It really is a pleasure to be with you guys. I very much value the engagement we get being from home and not being able to see everybody in person. So thank you for choosing to spend your time with us this morning. I wanted to touch on a couple of things right off the top before we jump into this presentation, specifically addressing COVID-19 and just some thoughts and some concerns I have for us as business owners, as operators, to make sure that when we come out of this thing, because we will, that we do so in a manner where we're ready to thrive and we're ready to succeed. So number one, we consultants are guilty of this all the time, but sometimes it just has to be said. Inventory. We have to make sure we have something to come back to. We have to make sure we have a level that is essential for coming back and coming back strong. Do not neglect, even with how we're managing expenses and we're monitoring more the expense side of the ledger during this time. Don't neglect that you need to invest in your inventory value. You need to have that to come back to and come back strong. That is our biggest advantage when we recover from this, is the fact that we will have inventory across this country ready to go, while other types of our supply chain in the auto parts world will struggle. And so we want to be ready to meet that call. We want to encourage you guys to be ready to meet that call. Secondly, lots of options with layoffs and furloughs and reduction in hours for employees. Highly encourage you, if you have gotten on the PPP plan and you are able to retain employees or even have that option, please keep them engaged. Coming from a mental health background, that was my prior career to this field. Even when we come back, if you've had employees that are working from home or have had some sort of absence, there is no guarantee that even when they come back that they will be the same. We're talking a lot about keeping people healthy and whatnot, and one of the challenges for that is there's going to be a lot of people, and you know your teams, you know your employees, those that struggle with depression already, or those that struggle with substance abuse or isolation. In particular, even if they have to be at home, make sure you reach out to them. Make it a priority to keep them engaged, to invest in them personally, to let them know they have, that they matter, that they're important. That type of leadership and mentality from you all as owners and managers can't be overstated. So you guys know how that goes coming back from long weekends or holidays. You know what employees get back in the swing of things quickly and which employees don't. You know which ones have a positive home life and ones that don't. Make sure you're putting an effort out there to invest in them at least for their mental health and their well-being, so that when they come back, they're also in a position to thrive. That's on the concern side. On the positive side, this is a great opportunity to have employees engaged, to be looking into your own operation, to see ways that you can improve. And whether that be looking at new revenue streams like eBay or other online, maybe it's enhancing your website. I heard a company say, man, that was on the to-do list, but it was always low on the priority list. There's opportunities for you to enhance your operations now that you otherwise wouldn't get to. And so don't neglect those. Use this time wisely. I think there will be companies that come out of this and slingshot forward and do very well and improve and exceed their current sales levels before this crisis. And I think there's going to be other companies that really struggle to get back to that level. So I expect, as most turning points and events are, that this will be a separator for many people. So let your leadership, let your team, and let your engagement and energy drive you guys forward. So with that being said, let me introduce myself for those who are less familiar with what we do. We are Counts Business Consulting. That is myself and Robert Counts. We have other team members as well that do recruiting and hiring with us, that do weekly online sales training. We offer sales training online in English and in Spanish. We've had very good success with that. You can feel free to reach out to me at any of my ways of being contacted here or through Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm very accessible and easy to find. We're going to be talking about sales, and the main priority from this is sales counters that pay for themselves, profitability, and really keying in on what our sales teams produce and what they're capable of producing. This has been borne out by our experience over the last 3+ years in doing weekly online sales training. And that's both at a manager level as well as an individual employees level. That's with new hires, that's with veterans and very experienced sales teams. We continue to do owners groups, we continue to do profit teams. We saw this as an avenue. You who have participated in those meetings know not everybody progresses at the same rate. And as someone who likes novelty and seeing progress and seeing production, this was a service that we came up with so that we could work directly in your companies to not just talk at you and tell you what you need to do, but we wanted to be the hands and the mouthpiece that are engaged with your employees to help them exceed and meet their expectations and exceed and grow in ways that they didn't know internally were possible. So whether that's at an employee level, whether that's at a management level, we have that capability. I tend to work more with the managers and teams, while Rich and my sales team, they work more one-on-one with the individual salespeople. Recently in March, even with the challenges we face, we were able to exceed $15,000 in organic profit for multiple companies just through increasing their brokering with this service. And we were able to take a moderately experienced salesperson from the $130,000 a month range up over $210,000. Even with the headwind, I think he would have done even more than that given the last week or two. So this really is a service for anyone. This is a net zero cost program. Anybody that's engaged and any salesperson that's willing to work with us, we will not only cover our costs, we will produce a strong ROI for you and your company. And that's what this presentation is about. We'll talk about some of our methods and how we do that. And I look at it as a cost of goods for recyclers these days. If you spent $1,000 and it generated $3,000 in revenue for you this month, or $5,000 in revenue for you this month, you would take that deal every time, a 30-day term. So I'm not sure which of your salespeople you think of when you're thinking of who's not capturing all their opportunity, who's not reaching their full potential. But whoever that is, wherever that would be, we can grow their sales. If you want more profit, if that's something that would benefit you, and who wouldn't, please reach out to us and let us know. This is far and away the best thing we do. It's the best service we offer, and we would love to have an opportunity to produce more profit in your company. Part of what we're doing in the midst of these challenging times, and where we're being conscious of our expenses and everything that's going on, we wanted to give a voice in the industry. We still wanted to provide value and service to you all. So this is a free resource. It's a podcast called Let Me Talk to My Customer. Any of you that have listened to phone calls with your salespeople know that one of the most common ways our customers get off the phone with us is some variation of, all right, let me talk to my customer and I'll get back with you. So it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek there, the title of the podcast. We also did release an episode recently, yesterday, with Racer Yeomans, where he monitors purchasing data, volume of inventory that go through auctions and whatnot. So we were able to touch on supply chain and the impact of COVID-19 nationally, regionally yesterday. So we will have special episodes and topics that are more for purchasing or buyers or production, but we will always, every week, have a Monday morning, have a podcast that is just for salespeople, that is just for sales managers. So I would highly encourage you to get your team listening to these, subscribed, however you want them to find it. Can't beat free training, right? So it's a great opportunity for them. If you guys have any feedback, ideas, recommendations for topics you'd want covered, we'd love to hear from you. So please reach out. Okay, so my goal, and the KPI I've seen that to me has become the foremost and most important KPI in sales, is your ratio of cost of your payroll, and whether that be your sales operation or whether that be your entire operation, compared to the organic profit that your sales team produces. Okay, we can all imagine, what would it be, especially right now, what would it be like for you as a company the first quarter of this year if you had a sales team that covered all of its own payroll costs with the profit it produced? What would it be like to run your operation with a sales team that produced enough organic profit to cover the payroll costs of your entire operation? The impact and the priority of your sales team is critical. Oftentimes we look at that as a top line revenue number. That's been the dominant focus on sales for as long as I've been in the industry. And to me, that is an important number, but it's not the most important number. So there are companies out there currently, if you can picture what your operation would be like with your adjusted overhead under $1,000 per vehicle. What would it be like in extreme cases, and we've seen this also, with an adjusted overhead under $0? Now, that's more of a specialized situation. That takes a lot of other dynamics to get there. However, it's doable. We've seen it done by multiple companies. And so that's something you as an operator, what would that look like? What would it take? Certain facilities, certain operations, adjusted overhead isn't necessarily the priority. You're a high yield vehicle focus, and so your adjusted overhead is higher. That's fine. That doesn't necessarily have to be your KPI that you key in on, but either situation, you should be keyed in on what part of your payroll does your sales team cover with the organic profit they produce. Okay, so there are companies out there that are operating with these numbers, that are hitting these challenges. They see their sales team as a profit producing center, and so they've keyed in on it, they've targeted that, and because of that, I rarely see these companies with a profit under 20%. And in many cases, they're able to hit numbers from the good old days of 30%, mid-20s or better. If that's not your operation, if that's not where you're at, somewhere in this program, somewhere in what we're looking at, you have missed opportunity. You have opportunities to expand your horizons, to expand your abilities, to achieve better results. As we all know, aside from what I've seen a little bit recently, cars aren't getting any cheaper. They're not getting easier to buy. The equipment, the software, everything that we need to operate as full service salvage yards is not getting cheaper on the expense side. The type of employees, the caliber of employees we need to bring in, many of you know this, are not getting any cheaper either. So we have all these other pressures that are rising or causing an increase in our inventory expense of our operation. So what are we doing to battle that? Where are we gaining margin? Where are we gaining profitability to be able to sustain growth and compete going forward? So one of the main things with any sales counter that I see that I've had the pleasure of working with, if I'm brought in, typically something hasn't been done or a company hasn't been able to make change or hit, they've seen in their group that other people are brokering at this rate, or they've seen in their groups that other companies are selling warranties at this rate. But when they go back for whatever reason, things just aren't connecting. Things aren't changing. There's some level of stuckness in what's happening on their own sales counters. So part of my job initially when I come in is establishing a baseline and understanding what you've always done, understanding where you're at, what's the mentality, engagement level, beliefs or objections of the team members that we're working with. And many of these companies have been successful in some form or fashion, but they tend to be successful in a limited manner. So many companies out there have grown not because their sales counter has been tremendous, but because the processing and inventory side of things has continued to grow. And so that company's been able to grow and thrive really with half the company functioning as it should be. So for you all right now and always, as a successful entrepreneur, you always have to have somewhere in your company an insatiable drive to improve, to challenge, and to conquer, especially on the sales counter. It's very easy for a sales counter to become stagnant. It's very easy for a sales counter to flatline and not produce. You know, you're doing the same thing day in and day out. So if we're not there keeping them engaged, giving them a new challenge, giving them a new goal, then we're as much to blame for the lack of progress, the lack of growth, the lack of change as anyone else. So take charge of what you control, especially right now. How often have you guys heard how far off searches are, how far off calls are, how far off parts shipped are? It's really easy right now for that to be our focus. You know, we have a fear-driven or a situational driven focus right now. And if that is already taking shape on a manager level, on an owner level, what do you think your salespeople are focused on right now? So one of the most critical things in sales is to have blinders on and to have a very narrow, specific focus on who I'm dealing with and what I control. It doesn't do me any good right now to focus on the lack of volume or anything. As a salesperson, my job is to maximize my current opportunity. Whatever calls I get, whatever quotes I have, I need to convert and make good on as many of those opportunities as I can. I need to be trying to expand any order or invoice I have. That's where my focus should be. What my top line number is and some of these other things, those results-oriented focuses shouldn't be where we place our time and energy right now. It should be on activity. It should be on engagement. It should be on them connecting and producing with the opportunities that they're provided. So I see going forward a shift in organizations. We're always reevaluating commission plans. We're always reevaluating goals. On a sales basis, that should be at least monthly that you're reevaluating goals. Where did you progress? Where did you not? And so what for each of you all in your organization are you keyed in on? What are you focused on? And to get back to what we were talking about off the top, if you're going to have a sales team, most of you, if you're going to have a sales team that covers the sales payroll with organic profit, or a sales team that covers your entire payroll with an organic profit, you're not going to get there, most of you, without focusing on that, without making that some sort of goal or target. And how you communicate that, how you set that up for your teams will be different. But instead, I would bet most of you currently have some sort of top-line revenue goals in each area, okay? And what I'm challenging you to is not necessarily to move away from that, but how do you re-envision or translate that to organic profit? I've said organic profit a lot in this presentation so far, so let me unpack that a little bit. This question, who or what produces profit in your company? For us, we think of inventory sales and inventory profit, anything that comes from the vehicles that you purchase. To me, that is a factor of whoever is purchasing that and inventorying that and processing that. I don't like to give sales a tremendous amount of credit for that. In fact, I would prefer, I mean, obviously we have to pay them for that. Otherwise, we don't want them losing interest. But I would prefer the bulk of their pay to come from everything they do outside of inventory and in-stock sales. To me, those profits are produced elsewhere. Those are predominantly driven by decisions made elsewhere in terms of what vehicles you're buying, where you're listing it, how you're listing it, and what parts you inventory. There's a lot of data and effort that goes into, really, right? If you think about it, all the profit that comes from our inventory, there's a tremendous amount of cost already associated with that. So when we say organic profit and covering your payroll with organic profit, we're talking strictly about warranty profit. We're talking about brokering profit, also freight profit, or if you have access to alternate inventory such as new or aftermarket, any of those non-expense driven profits from your operation. So my goal is for every sales counter to have that be their primary focus. There's only so many people in your company that can focus on producing a profit. Okay, we're very limited in that. And in fact, outside of inventory and your purchasing and everything you're doing there, only your sales team can produce other profit coming into your company. So this is a big deficit for us right now. depending on what your focuses are and what your KPIs are, you have to have your sales team keyed in on these primary profit producing centers, because they're the only ones who can change that. They're the only ones who can grow your broker, your warranty, and even making freight a point of emphasis. And what's true of any goal or any task-oriented system is, if I don't measure it, if I don't key in on it, the chance that I'm going to achieve it or improve on it are much lower. So where a lot of companies do freight differently, I promise you, there's not a company that's tied freight and freight sales together that hasn't, at a minimum, improved their freight profitability. Just by associating your expenses more directly with your sales, in any company, in anywhere, you will, by nature of measuring that, become more profitable, or at least cut into the expenses of that specific aspect of your operation. So as we move forward here, if you haven't done so already, make sure you write out some of these main targets. What's your current monthly payroll? All of you should know that, right? Anybody who's applied for PPP knows that number right now. And then lastly, it's not bad as a starting point to have that broken down by department, so that you can at least target sales first, paying for themselves, and then start expanding the pie so that you have a sales team that pays for themselves at a minimum. There's not a salvage yard that's connected to car part or a trading group or anything like that. At a minimum, a sales team must cover their own payroll. It is unacceptable for them to not produce enough profit to cover their own pay, right? That's a minimum. And then as we move forward, we can really start expanding that KPI. So we're talking about reevaluating, rethinking sales, its purpose, its function. There are salespeople I've seen out there that are doing 100,000, 150, even some that are doing 200,000, that simply put are not that impressive. Would I have them on my team? Would I have them in my company? Absolutely. I'm not saying they're unemployable or not important, but what I'm saying is they're not achieving their true potential, okay? That could be because they're over 90% of their sales are in stock. It could be because you buy such a high yield, nice type of vehicle that they're able to produce well over 100,000 in sales with one invoice per hour, okay? We're talking about being able to evaluate the opportunity costs of these salespeople. And when you look just at the top line revenue number, you can often miss what they should be doing for what the result is that you're getting. And so we're diving deeper here. What kind of difference in production and productivity do we get from salespeople? And so when you start looking at your own counters and you start evaluating, a lot of times you're seeing the opportunity that's achieved, you're seeing the result of current opportunity realized. But what would it look like if you started measuring your opportunity cost? How much is a salesperson costing you, right? What is their close percentage compared to either your competitors or in terms of their own team? What percentage of warranty are they currently selling versus what they ought to be, what industry standards should be? How much brokered profit are they producing? This is a great one to look at. You should have an expected brokered profit that everybody on your team should be producing. And that way, when you're thinking about it, you can see it as this salesperson is costing me X a month by not generating this. Okay, your seat, your phone, your inventory system, the opportunity that you're putting in front of them has a value. And you ought to measure that. And you ought to hold them accountable for the percentage of that value that they're achieving, okay? Any of you have salespeople that tend to cause more problems internally in your operation, whether that be with accounting, processing their paperwork and returns, or whether that be sloppy paperwork when it comes to what they send to production. Maybe they don't add alternate parts or they don't add good notes. They don't respond to resolutions. This is not just opportunity cost solely on a profitability scale, but this is trying to take a total account of how valuable a person is. And we can't just do that only by looking at results. So hopefully some of these questions are provoking some thoughts for you to go back into your own departments and your own companies to evaluate. So selling for profit. Again, your sales team is the only place that can produce profit in your company outside of the inventory that's produced. That is a vital, essential role that cannot be ignored. And it is something that if it's not done well, you're going to be competing against competitors that are that are putting you at a great disadvantage. There's definitely things you can do as a manager and an owner to make this easier or harder. How you manage, how you tier your data, what types of markups, what type of directions you give them. Those are all factors in what they produce here. But first and foremost, it's what the salespeople see as their purpose. How many of you guys, if you went and interviewed your sales team and you asked them, what is your role here? What do you do? What is your purpose? What is the mission statement of your sales counter? If they don't say to produce profit for this company, right? If they don't say my job here is to create profit, to provide for future growth, to provide for this company, then they're wrong. And they're clearly not focused on their primary function. For many salespeople, when I talk to them, they think their job is to sell parts, period. That's it. It's as simple as that. And in some cases, to sell only the company's parts, right? They're missing the fact that they have an opportunity that nobody else in the company has. When we were at the Midwest Runner Show, tremendous show, and what Jim and the guys at Midwest Runner have put on is tremendous. We calculated, and this was probably low, that within that trading group, there was an estimated $40 million in inventory sales purchased every month just within that group. And if we can't get salespeople to realize, is our potential greater from the inventory that we have here in our facility, or is our potential greater from all the inventory that we have access to sell? We want them to think big, to think outside the box, to realize that if they capture a customer, if they capture an opportunity, it's limitless what they can do. Their ability to sell and grow profit in your company is really something that we have to push. We have to continue to get them to think and grow their own perspective on what's possible. So the highest and best result for any salesperson, so your top salesperson right now, isn't necessarily who sells the most, right? Your best salesperson isn't who sells the most. Your best salesperson is who produces the most organic profit, who produces the most non-inventory profit in your operation. And then when you go back and you look at how are they incentivized, how are they paid, are they compensated in a fashion that reflects that? So we say OPP, you down with OPP, other people's parts, new, aftermarket, whatever. Any inventory that doesn't have to be handled and hit my facility. What do they produce and profit off that opportunity? And as an owner and manager, what am I doing to present more or better opportunities to them to expand on that? Warranties, freight. These are all tremendous resources and potential. And why this is so critical is not all sales are equal. We can look at, I dealt with a company that they just couldn't get over the fact that your profit on broker parts is only going to be 30%. And when I look at my in-stock, well, I mean, goodness, it's 50, it's 60% in some cases, my gross profit. But that doesn't take into account all the additional cost of your operation. When you look at the expense side of your ledger, what percentage of that comes from the inventory that you process? the vast majority of all of our costs as an operation comes because we have inventory. And it's not that that isn't profitable. It's not that that isn't productive. It's just that sales has the least to do with that profitability. So the cost of inventory, it's not just a gross profit figure. It's really thinking of everything that goes into that, from the buyer. How much time does it take to acquire inventory? How much time does it take to bid a car? How much time does it take to process all the paperwork and get towing lined up, logistics? What about listing that inventory? How many places can you list it? How many pictures need to be taken? How much repricing has to be done? It's insane the amount of time and energy that goes into that. And so let's take account of that. As a sales team, what's our cost on warranty? The paper we print in our claims. I've never seen a warranty program, an extended warranty program that was over 50%, that was under 50% profit. It is very difficult to hit that number. And really the only way you are less than 50% profit on warranty is if you stop selling, or you tell them no, or you run customers off and make your warranty program difficult, okay? It needs to be as easy and simple, as straightforward as it can, because it's just found money. It doesn't cost us anything to produce that. Brokering, again, we get instant, well, almost instant, as close to instant turn on brokered opportunity as we can. All the costs, right? We're talking about costs earlier. All the costs we directly assign to the transaction, right? If we're doing it right, we're covering costs, shipping, commission, we're factoring all that in the instant it happens. It's some of our best opportunity. When you buy inventory, you might lose money on that. You don't know at that moment if you're going to make money. Typically you will, but not always. With brokering, you know what you're going to make. Every time you get an agreed transaction, the money is there, okay? It might take a while to get it, and you need to make sure, obviously, during right now, that you keep cash flow tight. But it's tremendous opportunity because it's a better investment for our money and a faster return. So these are some of the guidelines that you can use to calculate what amount of sales in each of these profit centers does your sales team need to produce to start paying for their own wages? And then what would that number need to be for them to pay for the entire company's wages, right? So warranty is going to be 50 to 80% in general. If it's a mature warranty program, it's typically going to be 70 to 80% profit. Obviously, you get into lifetime or longer window warranty programs, that number might dip a little bit, but over the life of a program, this is the level of profit that you should expect. The only things that really hinder that is not accurately separating out that money. And many times where warranty program starts to fail or become a point of frustration for owners is, well, we haven't segmented the warranty profit money. And so we lose sight of cash flow is tight, and I see this warranty claim here. And that's very frustrating. And so it cripples a warranty program from negativity and belief that it's not working, instead of seeing that as a measure of, okay, I have a $5,000 claim here, let's say, on the worst case scenario, on a diesel engine or something like that. But I produced $20,000 in broker or warranty profit last month. So who cares, right? It's a cost of that operation. If I'm doing it right, it's covered in the numbers, okay? So the proposition is simple. What is your salesperson cost, and what type of non-inventory profit do they need to achieve? If we key in on this, if you key in on this, this is transformative for what your company can produce. If your sales team can hit this, there's no reason why your company should be anything less than 20%, 30% profit, okay? This is tremendous potential within each operation. So part of the reframing for them, for us, is looking at the network that they have and the impact. Sometimes we talk these big numbers, we talk about these big lofty goals, and we lose people. So when we break this down, right? So if you can, with each salesperson, increase broker parts, 2 parts a day, okay? Let's say average brokered sales, $500, profit of $125 on each of those units. Over a year, that would add $250,000 in sales, and that would add $60,000 in profit to your company. What's your average salesperson making a year? Okay, it might be higher or lower than that, but that's the type of numbers we're getting into here. 2 parts, I mean, is that crazy? How many out-of-stock searches do they have in a day? And if they can get 2 more brokered parts a day, what does that do to your company? I mean, this is one of those areas where we start keying in on a small level and incentivizing these daily focused growth plans. The profit potential is amazing with what you can do. And lastly, for the salespeople, part of what we do to get them to buy in is, who is their biggest customer? Who is their biggest opportunity? You know, a lot of times we think of our wholesale shops. I think it's very helpful for companies to think of eBay as a collective customer, right? It's really easy to get frustrated with individual eBay returns or problems that come up with it. But if you looked at them as an entire group, their credit percentage is negligible. They are some of the easiest to work with out there. And so for salespeople, the same kind of thing with other recyclers. If you looked at your broker network and you evaluated them as a group, who is your salesperson's biggest customer? And who's their biggest potential customer? For most of us, that's going to always be another recycler. If they develop good relationships, if they develop good connections, if they are smart in building a network, they have the potential to grow their sales, grow your profits in a way that's exponential. So what's the value of sales management? It's what we've keyed in on. It's what we focused on. It's focusing don't be fooled by the revenue number. The revenue number is important, but it's not the primary focus. Profit and profit production, specifically organic profit production, is the key to any successful, thriving, growing, transforming company in this industry right now. So as an owner and a manager, my goal is to equip them to make that process as streamlined and efficient and as smooth as possible, whether that's building specific partnerships in a trading group, whether that's building partnerships with a new or aftermarket supplier, whether that's stabilizing and standardizing markup percentages, discount percentages, freight percentages. Make it easy, make it simple, make it repeatable. And by all means, if you start from there with a standardized measure, this should really smooth a lot of headaches, because I'm not answering the same questions and problems over and over again. I have a process, I have a mentality, I have a successful system that works here. And so then I can deal with exceptions. You know, I don't have to get caught up with every little detail. I can watch the process grow and thrive. So the value of your sales professional, of your sales team, is really, and what this backs into, it's their ability to tie repeat customers back to them. Customers that call them, whether you have the product or not, customers that always buy the warranty because they know the value and the service that it provides. Customers that call you because they don't want to call around and their time is valuable. They want you to get the part. That's what backs into this number. If you have salespeople that are good at drawing customers, that are good at bringing customers in, then they are the ones who have the most potential to succeed. A lot of times we're called in to work with new salespeople, or maybe salespeople that are problematic. And that's fine. We do well there. We don't have any issues for the most part. And if we do, we cut services short and make sure you save your money. We'll let you know if it's a bad investment. But what gets missed more often than not is the person that has the most potential to grow in your company is typically your best salesperson, right? A 10% growth from that person is worth what compared to a 10% growth of your middle or newest salesperson? And you can't afford to let that person settle in your company. They have typically the best book of business, they have the best network, they have the best opportunities. And do you think with the connections that they have, what's the expectation for how much they should grow? Should they be stuck at 300,000? Is that enough? Should they be stuck at 400,000? You know, when you look at them and you evaluate them and their opportunity, and partly they need this, they need to be challenged. They want to succeed. They want to thrive. They have the best customers, right? And are you telling me that their customers aren't growing at 10, 20, 30%? So if their customer base is growing at that rate, how can it be anything less than, how can it be acceptable for them to hit similar numbers or less? Okay. Do you think about that? Or are the only focus, as sales managers and owners, you're only focused on your new or middle tier salespeople, right? We did this with another company, and the growth that we got from just a little bit of concentrated business planning, professional development with their top salesperson was crazy, right? I could go to that person and more quickly add 50, 60,000 a month for you and your company than just about anybody else on your counter. So where is your value? Where does the value of your sales team lie? What do you talk about? What are the things you're focused on? Where does your training, where does your engagement? Do you spend more time dealing with problems, or do you spend more time training, growing, business planning, looking at ways to thrive, looking for new opportunities? And I tend to find the companies that are more focused on the problems of their sales counter, and I'm not saying those shouldn't be addressed. I think they should. But with the number of transactions we have with salespeople, it is far more likely, if we focus on the problems, that we will have a negative sales counter, a disengaged sales counter, one that's not thriving or growing, than if we focus on solutions. Okay. Right now, as companies, we're all focused on expenses. Okay. That's fine. That's good. That's healthy. But you can't grow only through cutting expenses, right? Nobody can do that. There's a limit to how much you can cut. And if you're not energized, if you're not focused, if you're not engaged in growing and creating excitement and passion and energy and direction in a way that's allows people to thrive and encourages success, you have way more potential to that side of the ledger and for that focus than you do on the other end. Okay. So that's it for me. That's the content. I do want to encourage you guys this month. I know everyone's dealing with their own battles. For you guys, we have the podcast as a free resources. We encourage and highly recommend you guys engage with that, get everybody involved in that. We are also offering a special 50% off this month for any new signups, any new members that are signing up for our services. I tell you, I don't know that there's a better deal out there in the industry. It's a lot like the URG core program and a lot of things they do. Yes, and it's an expense, but it's one that directly produces sales. It's one that directly produces profit. And there's few things in our companies that we can afford less of than buying more profit, right? If it's just a matter of spending the money to make more money, that's a great deal for us. And so we're here to provide that service. We have a proven track record. We have great results. Even last month, even this month, we're still seeing success with what we're doing. So let me close with that, and then I'll turn it back over to Kristen or any of the audience members for any questions, any comments, any thoughts that you guys have.
Thanks, Chad. So as he said, we do have the ability to do a Q&A. Please drop them in the box or do it in the chat box. And we'll leave that open for another minute or so, Chad. And just want to give a quick thank you to everybody for hopping on. It looks like we do have one question for you.
Okay. am not seeing anything in my chat window.
So we have one from Vicky for Pinnacle Yards. What reports would you say are a must to look at and how frequently?
I like to look at a combination of reports. Most importantly, I'm a big fan of measuring opportunity and trying to, oh, there's the Q&A. Maybe I was on the wrong section. Perfect. So the S2A, looking at what their in-stock and out-of-stock searches are. I think that's where I start. Number one, there's a lot of salespeople that aren't quoting effectively. And so they're corroding or messing up my data by doing a lot of multiple lookups. So through that number and then looking at their P10, this is a bit manual, but counting then their out-of-stock searches and how many out-of-stock parts did they sell. I want to have that pipeline. I want to see how many out-of-stock searches they had, how many out-of-stock quotes did they have, and then what was their close rate. I don't think many of us really key in on broker close rate. When we first start with most companies, that number is insanely low for the most part. I've seen companies at 1% close rate on brokered opportunity. And the potential is 10%, I think, is what should be the industry standard. And right now, most companies are only in the neighborhood of 3 to 5% on the broker close rate. There are companies that are doing 20%, but we don't get there unless we're keyed in on that. So that would be the S2A. That would be the quote detail report. I believe that's the Q4. And then the P10 and looking at what their brokering is by number. Let's see. What are recommendations on preventing salespeople from gaming in-stock part sales by being padded by warranty? For the most part, Mike, I want to set up I want salespeople in general that are smart enough to play games, but I want to make sure I'm setting up the rules to benefit myself. So there are programs out there where you can measure and monitor this and see basically what the in-stock discount was and then what the warranty level added was. And that way you could factor out, whether it be every week or every month, you could subtract what that discount amount was. Really, that's something you want to watch for. And then I don't want to key in too much on the negative. In general, this was kind of like when we switched to freight and trying to make freight profitable. A lot of companies were concerned with, well, they're just going to cut screen price to add freight. And what I saw in the numbers was an average discount was 7% anyways. And now what was happening was I'm recouping some of that 7%. Most of the time they were going to discount that part anyways. Warranty is a little bit different. In some cases, they are taking advantage of that. But yeah, I would just monitor those and look at the reporting and try and deal with that more on a case-by-case basis. You could always put policies in place so you're not going to be paid on any warranties that are below the screen price, right? You'll be paid on any warranties that exceed the recommended screen price, is basically how I would put it. Great question, Mike. Any other questions, any other thoughts?
Thanks, Chad. So we do have a message from Mike Swift. Chad, I can tell you from the last time I watched this and concentrating on brokered sales, we went from 35% to 60% brokered sales and have a commission program started in 2020 January. Thank you.
Wonderful, Mike. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's amazing what our attention is worth. And kind of to Mike's point, I think, and both Mike's points, if I spend my energy solely on preventing salespeople from playing games on the warranty, I don't want to ignore that. I want to be able to look at that. But I do think the vast majority of us have far more potential focusing on how do we incentivize them continuing to push the envelope and continuing to improve. And so when you start targeting areas that are growth opportunities like Mike, 25% growth in a sales category. What's that worth? I mean, it's just game changing for operations to really be able to key in on this. And it's game changing for the salespeople too. How much more valuable are they? How much more valuable, how much more money do they make by thriving and focusing on these other areas? Well, great, guys. I'm on Facebook. We're around. I'm obviously trapped here in LA. So any of you guys that could use a little more profit in your business, or you have salespeople that are leaving opportunities on the board, right? They're not hitting all their opportunities. Please seek us out. I don't think you'll be dissatisfied at all. And if you try us out and you're not satisfied, then we would be happy to return your money. Our services and what we provide, we want repeat business. We want customers. You guys thriving and achieving is what keeps us going. There's not much benefit in an industry for consultants if our customers aren't growing, prospering, and thriving. So we are partners with you. We're allies with you. We expect this year to come roaring back. Whenever we're back, all the conditions are set up for us to thrive. And so I expect nothing less of our team. Hold on to your best people, keep them engaged, challenge them. You'd be surprised. Their ideas right now and what we could do to continue to be better and bring money in, they probably have some of the best ideas out there, your best people, your best engaged people. So challenge yourselves, grow yourselves. And as always, if there's anything we can do to assist in that, please reach out and let us know.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chad, and thank you for everybody for joining. Don't forget to tune in at 3 p.m. to hear Don Porter talking about coronavirus challenges.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. Again, Kristen, Don, Amanda for putting this on. Tremendous. Look forward to seeing you guys down the road.